Why rich people avoid buying these 7 things. Real quick before we get into this, I need you to forget everything you think you know about how rich people spend money, because the version of wealth you see on social media, the watches, the cars, the vacations that look like a Hollywood production, that's not most wealthy people. That's a very specific subset of wealthy people whose entire identity is performing wealth for an audience. And performing is the key word. Because the people quietly building and keeping generational money are not on a yacht posting Instagram stories. They're in a normal house, driving a normal car, making decisions that look boring from the outside and look like genius 20 years later. And one of the most consistent decisions they make, they avoid certain purchases almost religiously, not because they can't afford them. That's the part that messes with people's heads. They can afford them. They just understand something about these purchases that most people don't figure out until it's too late. Today I'm giving you the 7 things wealthy people quietly avoid buying, and exactly why avoiding them is part of how they stayed wealthy in the first place. I'm Naomi, welcome back to the channel, let's get into it. Number 1, new cars. I need you to really sit with this one, because it goes against everything car culture has told you since you were old enough to notice a nice vehicle. The average new car in the United States now costs over $48,000, which is already a number that should make all of us stop and stare at the ceiling for a moment. But the purchase price isn't even the main issue. The main issue is what happens the second you drive it off the lot. A new car loses roughly 15 to 20% of its value in the first year. By year 5, the average new car has lost around 60% of its purchase price. You bought a $48,000 asset that is worth $19,000 5 years later. That is not an investment, that is an expensive feelings purchase with a steering wheel attached. Thomas Stanley spent years studying actual millionaires for the Millionaire Next Door and found that the most common vehicle among American millionaires was not a luxury brand. It was a Toyota, specifically a used Toyota. Because people who build and keep wealth understand that a car is transportation, not a net worth statement, wealthy people who buy cars tend to buy vehicles that are 2 to 4 years old. Let someone else absorb that first-year depreciation hit, pay cash or keep financing minimal, and drive them for a long time. They treat cars like the depreciating asset they are, rather than the identity accessory the marketing industry has spent billions of dollars convincing us they should be. Meanwhile, the average American finances a new car at a monthly payment that consumes a significant portion of take-home pay, watches it depreciate into nothing, and then does the whole thing again in 4 years because that's just what you do apparently. The dealership loves this person. Wealthy people are not this person. Number 2, brand new houses at maximum budget. Banks will tell you what you qualify for. Wealthy people understand that what you qualify for and what you should spend are 2 completely different numbers with very little relationship to each other. The standard mortgage approval process asks one question: can this person make these payments? It does not ask whether making these payments leaves room for investment, emergency savings, retirement contributions, or any other financial priority. It asks if the math of payments versus income works, and then it hands you a number and calls it an opportunity. Maximum budget home buying is one of the most reliable wealth traps in existence. The family that buys at the absolute top of their approval creates a situation where the mortgage, property taxes, insurance, maintenance, and utilities consume so much monthly income that nothing meaningful can be saved or invested. The house becomes a financial black hole that looks like success from the outside and functions like a trap from the inside. Morgan Housel, in The Psychology of Wealth, makes a point that stings a little. He says that housing is the single largest driver of lifestyle inflation for middle-class Americans because it's the one purchase that's socially rewarded regardless of whether it makes financial sense. Nobody throws you a party for buying a smaller house than you could afford, but that decision can be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars over a 30-year period in investment returns alone. Wealthy people buy homes they can genuinely afford, which usually means well below what they qualify for. They prioritize the financial margin the smaller mortgage creates over the status signal the larger home provides. The neighbor doesn't know about your investment account. The neighbor sees the house. Wealthy people have made peace with this. Number 3, timeshares. I debated whether to include this one because honestly, the timeshare industry is its own entire documentary waiting to happen, and we could spend an hour just on this. But it belongs on this list because it is one of the most aggressively marketed wealth traps ever invented, and it works specifically on people who have some money and want to feel like they're making a sophisticated lifestyle investment. Here's what a timeshare actually is. You pay a large upfront cost, typically $20,000 to $50,000, for the right to use a vacation property for 1 or 2 weeks per year. Then you pay annual maintenance fees that average around $1,000 to $1,500 and increase every year whether you use the property or not. The maintenance fees are essentially permanent. They don't end. They are a financial commitment that follows you indefinitely. Now, here's the number that should end every timeshare sales presentation immediately. The resale market for timeshares is essentially non-existent. The average resale value of a timeshare is between $0 and $1, not a decline in value, approximately no value. There are companies that charge owners fees to take timeshares off their hands. You pay someone to take your timeshare away because you cannot give it away for free. Wealthy people vacation. They vacation well. They rent beautiful properties, stay in excellent hotels, take extraordinary trips. They just don't purchase permanent financial obligations disguised as vacation memories. The timeshare presentation serves unlimited food and beverages specifically because the math of what they're selling doesn't survive sobriety. Number 4, lottery tickets and get-rich-quick schemes. Stay with me here because I'm not just going to say gambling bad and move on. There's something more specific and more interesting happening with this one. The lottery is a tax, a very specifically designed tax on the mathematical optimism of people who haven't run the numbers. The odds of winning a major lottery jackpot are roughly 1 in 300 million. The expected value of a lottery ticket, meaning the average return accounting for all possible outcomes, is approximately 50 cents on every dollar spent. You are expected to lose half your money every time you buy a ticket. It is one of the worst financial products ever created, and it is sold at every gas station in America. The average American household spends about $640 per year on lottery tickets. Over 30 years, $640 per year invested in an index fund at historical market returns becomes approximately $115,000. The lottery tickets become statistical losses and a collection of small paper disappointments. But the lottery is almost the obvious example. The less obvious version is the get-rich-quick ecosystem. The courses promising passive income in 30 days, the trading systems that supposedly beat the market consistently, the real estate seminars held in hotel conference rooms where the entry-level course is $500 and the real course they're selling is $25,000. The crypto project that's definitely different from the other crypto projects. Robert Kiyosaki, whatever you think of his broader work, makes a point in Rich Dad, Poor Dad that wealthy people don't look for ways to get rich quickly because they understand that fast money and sustainable wealth are almost completely unrelated concepts. Wealth is built through consistent, boring decisions over long periods of time. Every dollar chasing a shortcut is a dollar not doing the boring thing that actually works. Number 5, extended warranties and financial products designed to profit from your anxiety. This one requires a little explanation because on the surface, extended warranties sound like responsible financial planning. You bought an expensive thing, something could go wrong, the warranty protects you, seems reasonable. Here is the economic reality. Extended warranties are one of the highest margin retail products in existence. Retailers make more profit on extended warranties than on the actual products they cover. The reason for this is straightforward. The warranty is priced to be profitable for the seller, which means it is statistically a bad deal for the buyer. If the math worked in the consumer's favor, retailers wouldn't sell them enthusiastically at every checkout. The same principle applies to a whole category of financial products that exist primarily to profit from financial anxiety. Credit life insurance, payment protection plans, debt settlement services, extended service contracts, many forms of whole life insurance sold to young people who don't need it yet. These products are aggressively sold to people who feel financially vulnerable because financial anxiety makes people willing to pay significant premiums for the feeling of protection, regardless of whether that protection is actually cost-effective. Wealthy people self-insure against small risks. They build emergency funds that cover appliance failures, minor car repairs, and the kinds of expenses that extended warranties are designed to address. They buy term life insurance for actual catastrophic risk and invest the difference between term and whole life premiums. They don't pay retail for anxiety relief. They build structures that make anxiety unnecessary. John Bogle spent decades arguing that the financial services industry is extraordinarily talented at creating products that generate fees for the industry while providing questionable value to the consumer. The instinct to ask who profits from this product before buying it is one of the most reliably valuable financial habits wealthy people develop. Number 6, designer everything as a personality. Let me be clear about what I'm saying and what I'm not saying here, because this one gets misread. I am not saying wealthy people don't buy nice things. They do. I am not saying quality is irrelevant. It isn't. I am saying that there is a very specific pattern of consumption where brand names and logos function as identity rather than quality. And this pattern is one of the most reliable wealth drains in existence regardless of income level. The 600 belt with the logo, the 1,200 sneakers with the recognizable silhouette, the handbag that costs $3,000 because of the letters stitched on the outside. These purchases are not primarily about the quality of the belt or the sneaker or the bag. They are about what owning and displaying the item communicates to other people. Veblen goods, a term from economist Thorstein Veblen, are products that people desire more because they're expensive, not despite it. The price is the point. The visibility of the price is the point. The communication of status through conspicuous consumption is the mechanism. And here is what's interesting. Actual wealthy people largely don't do this. Study after study on high net worth individuals shows that genuine wealth correlates with understated consumption. The real money tends to wear a plain watch, drive a modest car, and buy quality where quality actually matters, which is usually in things nobody else can see: good mattresses, excellent food, well-made basics that last for years, not logo-forward status signals designed to tell strangers something about your financial situation. Genuine wealth is quiet. The noise is usually people spending money they don't have on signals designed to convince people they don't know that they have money they don't have. It is an exhausting and expensive performance with no audience that matters. Number 7, their time sold too cheaply for too long. This one is different from the others, and I want you to sit with it because it might be the most important one on the list. Wealthy people are extremely protective of their time in ways that look strange until you understand the underlying logic. They say no to things constantly. They delegate aggressively. They will pay significant money to avoid spending hours on tasks that could be done by someone else at lower costs than their own time is worth. They treat their time as the finite and genuinely irreplaceable asset it is. Most people do the opposite. They spend hours to save small amounts of money. They stay in jobs that pay below their actual market value because leaving feels uncertain. They give their best hours and energy to work that doesn't compensate them appropriately while telling themselves they'll negotiate next year. They are selling time that cannot be recovered for less than it is worth and calling it practical. Gary Keller in The One Thing makes an argument that I find completely compelling. He says that wealthy people are not better at doing many things. They're better at identifying the few things that produce outsized results and protecting the time and energy required to do those things exceptionally well. Everything else gets delegated, automated, or eliminated. The person who stays in a job paying $20,000 below their market value for 3 years because looking for a new job is uncomfortable has sold $60,000 worth of their finite time at a discount. That's not practical, that's expensive. Wealthy people don't make that trade. They treat their earning potential as an asset to be protected and grown, not a fixed condition to be accepted. Here's the thread that runs through all 7 of these. Wealthy people are not avoiding these things because they're cheap. They're avoiding them because they've done the math, consciously or through accumulated financial instinct. And the math says these purchases cost more than they're worth. In money, in time, in financial flexibility, in the compound costs of what those dollars could have become if deployed differently. The new car that loses 20% in year 1, the maximum mortgage that eliminates investment margin, the timeshare that has no exit, the lottery ticket with a 50-cent expected value, the warranty price for the retailer's benefit, the logo that communicates status to people who don't matter, the time sold at a discount because change feels uncomfortable. None of these are obvious traps in the moment. They're all dressed in reasonable clothing. The car is transportation, the house is an investment. The warranty is protection, the lottery is just a little fun. That's what makes them effective traps. Morgan Housel says that wealth is the result of the gap between what you earn and what you spend, compounded over time. Every item on this list narrows that gap. Every item you avoid keeps the gap wide. The gap is everything. The gap is where wealth lives. You don't need a higher income to start making these decisions differently. You need the information, which you now have, and the willingness to make different choices than most people make, which has always been the harder part. But that's also why most people aren't wealthy, and you don't have to be most people. Subscribe if you want more of this every week. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, and I'll see you in the next one.